just want a little line. I don't want a whole lot out of it.
I understand.
I'm shooting it in a way that I want to see its extremes. I want to see how far you can go with it. So I'm not lighting it in a way that Kodak may want me to light it, to show it in the perfect light, but to show what it can and can't do.
These are the situations we get thrown into once a fortnight. You just have to turn up and make a plan and shoot it. We don't have enough lights even on big dramas to light all these buildings. So my intention is to try and replicate what the ambient light would do to our main actor when he comes in and sits down.
Well, there are situations where you may have one stock. You may want to have a consistent look throughout your entire picture. We want to see how does the film react in overexposure. Kodak's been making film for over 100 years for the motion picture industry, and that just shows the commitment that we have towards the medium and the art itself. Today we're introducing a new product, a new line of films called the Vision2 platform. We wanted to test the new film in a variety of lighting situations, so we invited 2 cinematographers, and along with myself, we shot a short film. What we try to do is cover a gamut of scenes, all kinds of scenes that cinematographers will find themselves in. Try to find where are they going to find the improvements. With this initial product we're showing, the 500 tungsten, we're going to be looking at improvements in image structure, grain, better color, skin tone reproduction, also more detail in shadows and highlights, and also we'll see cleaner telecine transfers and special effects which are more seamless. Great, cut, nice.
Instead of this, the original idea was to create a sort of a bohemian kind of cafe, subdued, low light. Everybody's in their own little worlds, and my approach to the lighting was to reflect that. Can you give me a soft topper here, like a 250 frame cutter instead of this? Just cut this down.
We're dialing past him. As soon as we clear him, start to see Jonathan. Action.
We have an actor who is very dark-skinned, and the lighting is so there's great shadow areas and bright areas with the table lamps, which are 3 stops over. So you've got a good brightness range. We'll be able to see detail still in this shade. Even in the shadows here, you'll be able to see some detail. Here we see the 7218. The biggest improvement is in the grain. Where it's apparent here is in the brick wall, in the midtones of the chair, the shadow area of the table, in the actor's skin. Here we have the 7.9. 7.9 typically blocks up, in the shadows. I mean, it's great, but by comparison, the 7218 is definitely an improvement. And here we are back to the 18. There's less red in skin tones, which is nice. And this is a great scene which shows color in terms of the flesh. It's much more natural. There's not as much yellow or red in it. There's more detail in her hair. And here we have the 7.9, and as you can tell, the skin color, there's a lot more yellow in it. With the 18, we definitely see more detail in her hair. The 7.9 blocks up there. Okay, here we have the 18 again. It's definitely a little less saturated, but it's nice.
I'm getting like a stop and a half under. Yeah, exactly. And what we want to look at here is a technical scene. We're comparing the new film and the old film. So we have a black skin tone, an Asian skin tone, and even though we have a high-speed 500 speed film, we still want to see what the grain's going to look like, how the tonality is going to be. Shoot it at a 5.6. Right on a 5.6. All right, now we're looking at the 7218 stock, and here I want you to take notice of grain as well as the skin tones. Look at the grain of the blue shirt, the skin tones themselves. Any flat area is a good place to look for grain. Now when we switch to the 7279, you'll notice the grain has come up a little bit. Again, looking in those flat areas of the shot, look at the blue shirt, look at the skin tone, you'll see just a little bit more noise, more grain in those areas. Now when we switch back to the 7218, again take note of the skin tones. They're much more natural looking, less red, and a little finer grain in those flat areas. As we've already mentioned several times, grain was one of the big improvements in the stock. So now we're going to compare the 500 speed stock to a 200 speed stock, 7274. So we'll take a look at this shot of the woman on the bus. I want you to take notice of her skin tone, the area behind her head, which is a medium tone, and also the area outside the window. Again, all good areas to look for grain. Now we switch to the 7274. You notice that the grain has not changed very dramatically. You will notice, though, a little depth of field difference outside. That's simply because of a stop change being wider open. Now we switch back to the 7218. Again, there was not a big grain difference, which is just a statement to say how good the grain is on this high-speed stock.
Any idea what you're going to do with the statue?
We're going to put lights behind the two front people here. Two front statues are just cross lights, so we might get this inscription here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But this is very much the experiment that we're going to conduct tonight, and I put lights in certain areas that we'll be able to tell how that light is reproduced on this new film, and there are also darker areas. So I've lit in layers right through the back, and then there's another layer at the back which is quite bright again, so that you'll have depth. But there'll be small areas in between where you'll be trying to look for shadow detail, and that will probably give us more of a clue than anything else, I think.
Thank you. This light area right here is +2.
Yep.
This right here is +1.
Right there.
All right.
Thanks.
That's it.
Great.
Wonderful mix of flesh tones. Brilliant color rendition on all of them. Very sharp indeed. The 7279 tends to fall off in the background, not as much detail, not as much shadow detail. .218 again. Yes, much better color rendition, as you can see. Great detail. There's no part of that frame that's not exposed, which is a wonderful improvement. 7218 at one stop under. You're losing a little bit of detail in the background, but it's still very acceptable. Still no grain, even though it's been forced in the reproduction. Very acceptable. 7279, one under. Trees have gone a bit. The flesh tones are creeping a little with a bit of grain. Certainly prefer the 18 under these circumstances. Yes, back to the 18 under. Very good detail on that. Very acceptable images. I'm very pleased if that was the results that we achieved. 7182 under. I lost a little bit in the background, but under the circumstances, still very good color rendition. 7292 under. Now very grainy now with forced exposure coming through. Lost a lot in the trees at the background. Not a very acceptable image. Going back to the 18, much better. Much better. Very nice reproduction.
We're racing against the sun right now, trying to get a shot here in the garden. Basically, we're looking at color reproduction, green and flesh tone. So we're going to compare the new stock. What we may see is a little bit difference in color saturation, more subtle color with the new stock, more information in the shadow areas. So as we look in the background against the ivy wall and so on, Maybe we'll see a little more detail back there.
2.8. Looks good.
Now we're looking at the 7218. It's a little lower contrast, a little lower color saturation overall. The greens are soft but very natural looking. The background has some areas which are about 3 stops under that'll have a little more shadow detail. As we switch to the 7279, you'll see it blocks up just a tiny bit there. Now as we come forward and we look at the green areas in the foreground, you'll notice they're more saturated on the 79 stock. And now we'll shift back to the 7218. Again, now it's a little more subtle, again an overall more natural appearance. Now we're looking at the 7218 on the Macbeth chart. Here I want you to take notice of the linear tone scale. As we shift to the 7279, you notice that the grain is a little bit higher. And now we shift back to the 7218. Again, the gray scale is much more neutral and the grain has come down.
I think that's the best way to test the stock is to use your preferred methods and see what it can and can't do. And I just think, especially for television production, I think that this film will be a major improvement for 16 mil.
My initial impression is how much more natural it looks in nighttime conditions. I'm very pleased with the results.
Okay.